Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for listening to this presentation. Our company is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and on the New York Stock Exchange. We don't have any debt, and we're not here to raise capital. We're here to raise awareness of our business and what it's doing, and also the potential that it offers to the astute investor who understands gold dynamics and who has an appreciation for substantive value. This is what mining looks like in our context or in our universe. As you can see, there's a person with a high-pressure water jet, and he's washing away tailings that had been built up over the last 100 years. So mining in South Africa and in Johannesburg area started in the 1890s, and vast tailings dumps had been established and scattered all over the Johannesburg skyline. And we're really the only company that has adequate infrastructure and connectivity to access all of these. And I'll talk more about our resources and our reserves as we go along. We think that we can legitimately call ourselves a world leader in gold production from surface tailings retreatment. I'm not aware of anybody else who does this at this scale and at this level of efficiency. There is a depiction of our shareholder base. I want to point out Sibanye-Stillwater, who's our core shareholder. They became a shareholder last year when we did a transaction with them, in terms of which we acquired infrastructure and resources in exchange for a 38% stake in our company. They have the option to take that to 50% plus one, which we hope they do because there's substantial leverage opportunity for us in terms of the balance of their footprint across South Africa and also the world. Now, when you talk about mining in South Africa, it's one of the oldest and certainly one of the most compelling gold mining stories in the world. For many, many years, it was the largest producer of gold in the world. In fact, there are mines in South Africa, the Western Deep Levels mine, some of you might remember, that's responsible for 5% of all the gold that's ever been produced since the beginning of mankind. And we have the privilege of being within reach of the tailings of all of those mines, where perhaps because of the content of gold, the quality of the ore body, the eye wasn't always that keenly focused on extraction efficiency. So quite a bit of gold was left behind in those tailings. We have a 5.8 million ounce reserve on surface, neatly stockpiled there over the last century, and 9.8 million ounces in resource. It's easily accessible because it is visible, clearly visible, and it's also concentrated. We don't have to drive around, look around for it. It's well within reach of our infrastructure capacity. So the way that this works is, and you'll just look at this flow diagram. I think there is a pointer here. Yeah, there we go. So the tailings are treated by way of hydraulic mining, which basically means that we mix it with water, and the slurry is then pumped to 3 distinct plants where it's subjected to a normal CIL process. Obviously, because of the scale and the metallurgical complexity, it's something that has to be proactively managed towards very specific parameters. You cannot allow this plant to go out of sync. The tailings go onto 2 distinct large tailings facilities that are modern, managed to modern standards, and pose very little impact on the surrounding communities and surrounding environment. The doré bar goes to the Rand refinery, and from there into the gold markets. The water goes back into circuit, so no water gets lost. It's a process that is very sensitive to and aware of the impacts on the environment, and it's a very keen focus of our business. And then the land that is opened up that was previously covered by tailings, that's rehabilitated and that goes into redevelopment. And remember, this is now right there in the middle of the largest city in sub-Saharan Africa. So every piece of land that is opened up gets restored back to commercial use and proper use, accommodation, commercial, industrial, and so forth. Last year alone, we returned 135 hectares of land back to Johannesburg. Right, so moving along. If you want to succeed in South Africa, you would be familiar with some of the labor issues that you read about from time to time. You don't really want to be involved in labor-intensive mining. You want to be in mechanized mining. You don't really want to have labor in the true sense of the word. You would more want to have an operator kind of environment. The reason why we have a lady in this picture is not coincidence. We are the company in South Africa with the highest percentage of female operators. 21% of our labor force are female. And if we had known what we know now, maybe this would have been the situation many, many years ago. I think something that is embedded in part of our story, and this is maybe something that will also resonate now with a new focus on ESG, is that by its very nature what we do is rehabilitative of land. So we mine these tailings for commercial, with a commercial objective and in order to yield a return to our shareholders. But what we also achieve in the process is to clear land and rehabilitate land that had previously become sterilized. And we do this to a very specific standard. Also, where we dispose of the tailings on our new tailings dams, these are managed to a world-class standard to ensure that the impact that this tailings facility has on the environment is limited to the fullest extent. And this, in fact, is what a tailings disposal facility looks like in modern-day South Africa. This is our largest tailings facility, and you can see the cladding and the vegetation that takes place in order to contain environmental impacts. So, those of you who are familiar with South Africa, this is the province of Gauteng. This is where the Springboks live, the ones who recently won the World Cup against England. So, in the province of Gauteng, there are two little towns. The one is a little town, that's Carletonville. The other one is a big town, that's Johannesburg. And our operations are situated in both Johannesburg and in Carletonville. This is where Western Deep Levels used to be situated. This is where gold was discovered. The largest single deposit in the world was discovered in the 1890s. And DRDGold, or Durban Roodepoort Deep as it was previously known, was very much part of that situation. If you're going to go back to this on our website, these lines are all pipelines. These are large tailings dams. And the little yellow dots, these are the reclamation sites. That forms part of those form part of the resource. Two distinct operating footprints. Ergo is the mothership. It is a high volume facility. We process close to 2 million tons a month through this facility, where we recover approximately 200 parts per billion. And then the next one, which is the new kid on the block, this is the high grade within the context of tailings reclamation facility. Operations. This is the new one, which we acquired from Sibanye. There we treat about 500,000 tons per month. So total production per year, or throughput per year, is about 30 million tons of material that's processed. And we try and produce roughly half a ton of gold every month, so 16,000 ounces of gold per month. That is our target. And we try to produce that at around about $1,000 per ounce, with about another $50 in sustaining capex, which is becoming increasingly within our reach as a consequence of the addition of this lower cost, high grade facility. I'm not going to talk too much about our strategy. Suffice it to say that our strategy has, for many, many years, been very aware of and aligned to this whole idea of sustainable development. You cannot have an operation of this scale in the middle of a city and not be aware of environmental impacts, and not be sensitive to social capital, and be ignorant of what your operations, the impact of your operations could be both negatively and positively within the context of that. So we've always been really focused on ensuring that we keep the right sort of employee with our employee wellness programs, that we do something for the surrounding communities. Most of the people who live around tailings dams are very poor. So poverty alleviation has been key in our strategic approach towards social capital. And clearly we want to contain the environmental impacts of our operations. We want to restore the legacy of mining in Johannesburg through rehabilitation. But at the same time, we also want to tread lightly on Mother Nature. And that means that we are very energy efficient, first and foremost. And secondly, we also take care in ensuring that the water, for example, that we use is mostly grey water, and that it stays in a closed circuit, so that we don't waste and that we don't unduly burden the environment. These are our financial performance indicators for the financial year ending in June. And I'm not going to go into every single one of those, but I think what I want to emphasize perhaps just briefly is that we managed an increase in revenue of 11%, a neat little increase in operating profit as well. But there's one number that I would like you to maybe just look at, and that's that number there. That's 280 million rand, or roughly $18 million that we had in cash in the bank at the end of June 2019. Now, this is the balance that we ended up with after we had spent roughly $23 million on our new project. So if you want to take rand to dollar, just multiply it by 0.07. 1 rand is 7 American cents. So $23 million goes into infrastructure development, We end the year with just under $20 million. During the year, we borrowed $12 million as part of the project, and when we finished the year, we had zero debt. We finished the year with zero debt. We were in a position to declare a dividend. It was, in fact, our 12th successive dividend, 12 years in succession that we've had a dividend, and we didn't owe the bank. We didn't owe the bank anything. Production update at the end of September, we had taken that cash balance of $18 million, and we had increased that to roughly $23 million. This was the same quarter that we had paid a dividend of roughly $12 million. So in one quarter, after the gold price had risen ever so slightly and our operations started stabilizing at the level that they did, we managed to make more money in one quarter than what the actual dividend yield was for the entire year. So we are a company with a very stable cash position. We've got lots of cash in the bank, and that trend is continuing. We have absolutely zero debt. That's why we're not here asking you for money. We're asking you to consider the stock and take, perhaps reflect on the sort of exposure that it can offer to gold price. Also taking into account that you are rewarded for holding the stock by payment of a dividend. Very important part of the story. And for this year, as I said earlier, targeting roughly 0.5 ton of gold production per month at a cost of just under $1,000 per ounce. And with a gold price of just north of $1,450, you work out, you do the math, you'll see what sort of margin we're looking at here and what the potential free cash flow of this business is going to be over the next 12 months, considering that most of our big capital projects are behind us. We're not looking at spending much more than about $5 million in capex for the remainder of the year. Ladies and gents, that's our story. Thank you very much for listening.